You are not tired because you work too hard. You are tired because your mind never stops. You lay down at night, and instead of rest, you get a courtroom in your head. Every decision you made today is on trial. Every conversation replayed with a different ending. Every fear about tomorrow lined up and given a microphone. And you wonder why you wake up exhausted before the day even starts. This is not weakness. This is what happens when a man has never been taught how to control his own mind. The Stoics figured this out over 2,000 years ago, not as theory, not as something to discuss over dinner, as a practical daily system for taking your thoughts back, for becoming the kind of man whose mind is his greatest weapon instead of his greatest enemy. There are 11 habits, 11 specific practices that the greatest Stoic minds used every single day. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, men who faced war, exile, slavery, and empire, and never lost their grip on themselves. If you stay until the end of this video, your relationship with your own mind will never be the same. Let us begin. Habit 1. Audit your morning before the world gets access to it. Marcus Aurelius did not pick up his phone when he woke up. He did not check what the world needed from him. He did not open the door and let the noise in. He sat down and he wrote. Every single morning. Before anyone else was awake. Before a single demand had been made of him. He asked himself 3 questions and he answered them honestly. What kind of man am I going to be today? What is likely to challenge me today? And how will I respond when it does? This is not journaling in the soft, modern sense. This is a military man preparing for battle. He was not writing about his feelings. He was building a plan for his mind before the day had a chance to ambush it. Here is what most men do instead. They open their eyes and immediately reach for the phone. And the moment they do, they have handed the first hour of their day to everyone else. The algorithm decides what they think about. The notifications decide what they feel. The news decides what they fear. By the time most men have been awake for 30 minutes, they have already lost control of their own mind for the day. The Stoic solution is ruthlessly simple. Own the first 30 minutes. No phone, no social media, no news. Just you and your thoughts before the world arrives. Write down what matters today. Write down what you are going to refuse to let disturb your peace. Write down who you are deciding to be before anyone else tells you. This single habit alone will change everything. Because the man who controls his morning controls his day. And the man who controls enough days controls his life. Habit 2. Separate what you control from what you do not. Epictetus built his entire philosophy on one distinction. Some things are up to us. Some things are not up to us. That is it. That is the whole foundation. Everything he taught came from that one line. What is up to you? Your thoughts, your choices, your effort, your response to what happens. What is not up to you? Everything else. The weather, other people's opinions, traffic, the economy, what your boss thinks, whether she texts back, whether the deal closes, whether the world is fair. Most men spend 90% of their mental energy on the second list. Things they cannot touch, things they cannot change, things that are happening outside the boundary of their actual influence. And they spend almost nothing on the first list, the only list that actually matters. Epictetus called this the fundamental error of the untrained mind. You suffer not because of what happens to you, but because of what you think should happen to you. The moment you confuse what you want the world to be with what you can actually control, you have given your peace away. The practice is this. Every single time you feel anxiety, frustration, or anger, ask one question immediately. Is this something I can control right now? If the answer is yes, then act. If the answer is no, then let it go completely. Not mostly, completely. A man cannot be half committed to his own peace. This is not passive. This is not giving up. This is the most efficient use of human energy that has ever been described. The man who only spends his energy on what he can actually influence is the most effective man in any room. Habit 3. Practice voluntary discomfort. This one will sound strange at first, but stay with it. Seneca wrote that a man should regularly practice going without the things he normally has, not because poverty is virtuous, but because comfort is a slow thief. It takes your edge so gradually, you do not notice it is gone until you need it, and it is not there. He wrote about eating simple food for a few days when you do not have to, sleeping without the comfort of your bed occasionally, going without heat, fasting, taking cold water. Not as punishment, but as training, so that the fear of losing these things never becomes a leash around your neck. Here is why this matters for your mind specifically. Overthinking is almost always rooted in fear. Fear of losing something. Fear of discomfort. Fear of what might happen if the comfortable thing goes away. And the man who has deliberately practiced discomfort has already made friends with the thing he fears. It has no power over him anymore. The modern application is direct. Take the cold shower you have been avoiding. Skip the meal and stay sharp. Wake up an hour earlier than you need to. Sit in silence without music or a phone for 20 minutes. These are not health trends. These are ancient tools for building a mind that cannot be rattled by the threat of losing what it has. The man who has practiced being uncomfortable is the calmest man in every crisis, because everyone around him is afraid of what he already knows he can handle. Habit 4. Reframe obstacles as curriculum. Marcus Aurelius wrote one of the most powerful sentences in the history of human thought. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Read that again slowly. He is not saying that problems are not real. He is not pretending that hard things are not hard. He is saying that the obstacle itself, the very thing stopping you, is actually the path forward if you know how to read it. Every setback is showing you something about yourself. Every failure is a lesson the comfortable version of your life could never have taught you. Every person who works against you is revealing exactly where your character has a gap that needs to be filled. The untrained mind sees an obstacle and stops. It starts asking why this is happening. It starts looking for someone to blame. It rehearses the unfairness of it over and over until the rehearsal is the only thing it knows how to do. The Stoic mind sees an obstacle and immediately asks a different question. What is this developing in me? What is this showing me? How does moving through this make me better than I would have been if it had never happened? This is not positive thinking. Positive thinking tells you to pretend the obstacle is not there. The Stoic approach tells you to look directly at the obstacle and extract everything useful from it before you move past it. The practical habit is this. When something goes wrong, and something will go wrong, write down one thing this situation is forcing you to develop. One strength you are building because of it. One thing you now know that you did not know before. This single reframe is the difference between a man who is broken by adversity and a man who is built by it. Habit 5. Speak less than you know. Zeno of Citium the man who founded Stoicism, said something that most people today have completely forgotten how to do. He said we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and we should use them in that proportion. The Stoics believed that a man who talks constantly is a man who has stopped learning. Every moment you spend speaking is a moment you are not listening. And listening, real listening, not waiting for your turn to speak, is where wisdom actually enters a man. But here is the deeper connection to overthinking. Most people do not realize that constant talking and constant overthinking come from the same source. They both come from the need to process everything through the noise of your own voice. The man who talks constantly cannot sit with silence. The man who cannot sit with silence cannot access the deeper parts of his own mind where real clarity lives. The practice is uncomfortable for most men at first. In the next conversation you have, whether with one person or 10, speak 30% less than you normally would. Ask one more question than you normally would. Hold your response for 2 seconds before you give it. Let silence exist without filling it immediately. You will feel the urge to speak. That urge is the thing you are training. The man who can be silent when others cannot is the most powerful man in the room. Not because silence is strength by itself, but because the man who does not need to speak has already made peace with himself. Habit 6, Memento Mori. Remember that you will die. This is the one people resist the most, and it is also the one that works the fastest. Marcus Aurelius thought about death every single day, not morbidly, not with fear, as a tool, as a clarifying force, as the only fact about his life that was absolutely certain, and therefore the only fact that could reliably tell him what actually mattered. He wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." Think about what that sentence does to overthinking. The man who is obsessing over what someone said about him 3 days ago. Does that matter if today is the last day? The man who is paralyzed by fear of what might go wrong 6 months from now. Does that fear make sense when the most certain thing about his future is that it is not guaranteed? Memento Mori does not make a man pessimistic. It makes him present. It makes him decisive. It makes him ruthless about where he puts his time, because he understands at a bone-deep level that time is the one thing that does not come back. Seneca wrote, "Omnia aliena sunt, tempus tantum nostrum." Everything is alien to us. Time alone is ours. The habit is this. Once a day, morning works best. Remind yourself that this day is a gift that was not guaranteed. Not as a platitude, as a fact. And then ask yourself whether what you are about to spend the next hour on is worthy of that fact. That single question will eliminate more overthinking than any other practice on this list. Halfway point. Subscribe if this is hitting. Before we go into the second half, I want to pause for one moment. If this content is hitting different for you, if something in the first 6 habits has already shifted something in how you see your own mind, take 10 seconds right now and subscribe to this channel. Every Monday and Wednesday, we go deeper into the philosophy that the greatest men in history used to build themselves into something unshakable. There is a lot more where this came from, and you do not want to miss what is coming. Now, back to work. Habit 7. Practice negative visualization. This is the Stoic habit that sounds the most counterintuitive and produces the most immediate results. It is called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils, and it is the exact opposite of what modern motivation culture tells you to do. Modern motivation says visualize success, see the outcome, feel the win, picture everything going right. The Stoics said visualize losing everything, picture the worst case, sit with the discomfort of the thing you are most afraid of losing, and then ask yourself, if that happened, could I survive it? Could I find a way through it? Would I still be me on the other side of it? This is not pessimism. This is the most effective anxiety management system ever invented. Here is how it works on overthinking specifically. Most overthinking is not about what is actually happening. It is about what might happen. The feared outcome that has not arrived yet, but that your mind is running toward like it has already decided. Negative visualization takes that feared outcome and sits with it deliberately instead of running from it. And when you deliberately sit with it, you discover two things. First, it is survivable. Second, your fear of it is almost always worse than the thing itself would actually be. Seneca practiced this constantly. He would imagine losing his wealth, his position, his relationships, and then ask himself whether his peace depended on any of those things remaining. The exercise did not make him sad. It made him free. Because a man who has already faced the worst in his mind is not afraid of it happening in his life. Spend 5 minutes every morning on the thing you are most afraid of losing right now. Sit with it fully. Trace what would happen. And then remind yourself that you would still be standing. That habit alone will drain the overthinking machine of most of its fuel. Habit 8. Choose your circle like your life depends on it. Seneca wrote a line so direct, it almost sounds rude. Tell me who you walk with, and I will tell you who you are becoming. The Stoics understood something about human nature that modern psychology has now proven scientifically. We absorb the standards, habits, language, and emotional patterns of the people we spend the most time with, not through conscious decision, through proximity, through repetition, through the slow osmosis of just being around someone often enough. The overthinking mind is almost always a reflection of the conversations it has been marinating in. The man who spends his time around people who complain constantly will find complaint rising in his own thoughts. The man who spends his time around people who are building something, who talk about ideas, who push each other, who have standards, will find those patterns building in his own mind without him even trying. Seneca was specific. He said, "Do not associate with people who are comfortable being mediocre." Not because they are bad people, but because mediocrity is contagious and the infection is painless. You do not feel it happening. You just look up one day and wonder why your ambition is gone, and your standards have dropped, and your thinking has gotten small. The habit is an honest audit. Look at the 5 people you spend the most time with right now. What is the average of their mindsets, their habits, their relationship with discipline and growth? That average is what you are drifting toward, whether you mean to or not. This does not mean cutting everyone off dramatically. It means being deliberate, adding people who pull you upward, reducing time with people who pull you down, and protecting man who does it consistently for 30 days will understand himself better than most men understand themselves in a lifetime. Habit 10. Act before you think yourself out of it. Here is the habit that will be the hardest to hear for the overthinker. At some point, the thinking has to stop and the action has to start. Not when you feel ready, not when the conditions are perfect, not when the fear is gone. Now, with the information you have, with the resources you have, with the version of yourself that exists right now. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not waste the rest of your life in thoughts about other people. Look inward. Does your nature require you to be active and purposeful? Then be that." The Stoics had a word for right action taken at the right moment. They called it appropriate action. And they believed that the man who is always preparing to act but never acting has made preparation his entire identity. And preparation without action is just delay dressed in discipline. The overthinking trap is seductive because it feels productive. You are doing something. You are thinking. You are planning. You are researching. And all of that is real and useful up to a point. But there is a line, and most overthinking men have been on the wrong side of that line for years. Where more thinking is not refining the plan. It is avoiding the risk. The habit is a rule. Give yourself a deadline for the decision. When the deadline arrives, you act. Not on perfect information, because perfect information does not exist. On the best information you have. The action itself will generate more information than any amount of additional thinking ever could. Marcus Aurelius was the emperor of Rome. He made decisions that affected millions of people every single day with incomplete information, uncertain outcomes, and enemies on multiple fronts. He did not wait until he was sure. He acted with wisdom and adjusted as he moved. That is the Stoic model. Move, adjust, move again. Habit 11. Build an unshakable identity before the world tries to shake it. This is the final habit, and it is the one that holds all the others together. The Stoics believed that every man needs a core, a definition of himself that is so clear and so deeply held that external events cannot reach it. Not a definition based on what he has, not based on what he does for work, not based on who is in his life or what his reputation is. A definition based entirely on who he has chosen to be at the level of character. Marcus Aurelius came back to this over and over in the Meditations. He would ask himself, "What is the nature of a good man?" And then he would compare himself to that standard. Not to other people, not to his past self, to the standard. This is why the Stoic mind is so resistant to overthinking. The man who knows exactly who he is does not spend hours questioning himself. He does not replay conversations wondering what people thought. He does not lose sleep over whether his choices were right. He acted from his identity, and his identity is not up for negotiation based on what the day brought. Epictetus was a slave. He had no control over his circumstances. What he had, the only thing no one could take from him, was his character. His decision about who he was going to be regardless of what was done to him. And that decision made him one of the freest men who ever lived. The habit is this. Write down in one sentence who you are at the level of character. Not what you want, not what you are trying to achieve, who you are. Then every morning read that sentence before you do anything else. Let it be the first thing your mind touches before the world gets access to it. When you know who you are, the noise gets quiet. Because noise only has power over the man who is still trying to figure out who he is. Closing. 11 habits. 2,000 years of proof that they work. The Stoics did not overthink their way to wisdom. They built systems, daily practices, habits that over time rewired the way their minds moved through the world. Marcus Aurelius managed the greatest empire in history from a place of inner stillness. Seneca accumulated wealth and influence without being owned by either. Epictetus built a philosophy that outlasted the empire he was enslaved by, from a room with almost nothing in it. None of them were born with quiet minds. They built quiet minds. The same way you build anything worth having, through daily practice, through showing up, through refusing to let the noise win. You have the same 24 hours they had. You have the same mind they had. You have 11 habits that have already been tested by the hardest circumstances history ever produced. The only question left is what you do with tomorrow morning. Subscribe to The Quiet Stoic and stay on this path. New wisdom every Monday and Wednesday, built for the man who is done letting his own mind be his biggest enemy. Veil.